I thought I would weigh in on the controversy surrounding Patreon deleting accounts. There's a lot of information out there, some of it's factually based, some of it's opinion, and I don't know every single detail about this subject. I'm learning what I can from lots of different sources and piecing it together. But what I found is a lot of people are kind of freaking out about it, as they do about everything, and really misinterpreting it. So this is my take on the whole thing. There's a lot of anger out there being directed toward the wrong people here. A lot of people are really PO'd at Jack Conte, the founder of Patreon, and they're putting all the blame on him, saying, you know, oh, you're censoring people and you're censoring people for political reasons and this and that. Patreon has the right and, in my opinion, an obligation to keep its community safe. If the majority of Patreon's users and creators want Patreon to be a safe place, and they don't want to be affiliated with certain types of behavior, then it's in Patreon's best interest to serve their core audience. You'll never please everyone, and you can't be neutral because if you don't do anything, then your platform gets taken over by people who want to ruin it. As a content creator who manages several communities, I empathize with the folks at Patreon who get criticized for not doing enough, while at the same time constantly crossing the line. And I'm all for freedom of speech in my comments, but there's things that I don't allow. That's my right as a content creator, and that's Jack Conte's right as the founder of Patreon, just like it's your right to delete a post or a comment if you find it offensive. Freedom of speech is definitely a thing, but it doesn't apply everywhere in every single situation. There's things you can say, and you can have opinions, and you can have a platform and all this stuff, but it doesn't mean that another group or another website or another person has to allow it in their space. And that's basically what's going on here. So yeah, that's how it is. That's the internet. Patreon allows stuff and they don't allow stuff, and they try to have rules that make sense, just like YouTube allows stuff and doesn't allow stuff. I mean, if you're going to participate on the internet, you have to follow the rules to some degree, and the rules are pretty darn relaxed on the internet for the time being. Unfortunately, people will always find a way to game the system and break the rules legally, and that's why rules are constantly updated. Patreon probably didn't expect this would happen, but it did. A lot has changed since Patreon launched. We live at a time when individuals, groups, companies, governments can manipulate public sentiment through the internet, and facts are now second to opinion. This whole Patreon scandal is being politicized and manipulated to serve the interest of others. And it doesn't help that people are spreading misinformation about the subject. This whole thing is getting hyped up to make people afraid that Patreon's suddenly just gonna terminate their account for no good reason. I've heard it put as they're gonna snap their fingers and take my Patreon down because of whatever I'm into. Look, if you're just trying to post some artwork or some music or a story and you're not posting content that you know is going to offend a lot of people, then you have nothing to worry about. If you're so blind that you can't see how hate speech is offensive and you believe that that's freedom of speech, then you're misguided. And it's not just Patreon that's defunding hate groups and people who are inciting violence and bigotry. Google/YouTube has, PayPal has, and lots of other companies have as well. And it's going to keep happening until people start coming together rather than being divided and trying to harm each other. But that's really not what Patreon's all about. Patreon is not about who's going to fund which political group and let's all fight with each other. That's not the purpose of Patreon. That's not why I signed up for Patreon. I don't think that's why Patreon was created. Patreon was created because people like me just like to make some art, and that art gets us away from all of the politics and all of the fighting and squabbling between people. And then all of a sudden, I guess everyone's welcome here. If you want to post some political stuff, cool. I guess that's art too. And then that turns into like all these things that harm other people. And yeah, that violates Patreon's terms of service. That violates a lot of terms of service from lots of different social media and crowdfunding sites. And so it's not gonna be welcome. But then you're stuck in that position where, well, if you censor these people, then they're gonna get PO'd, and then other people are gonna get PO'd and call it censorship. But then if you don't do anything, then these other people are gonna be really offended and they're gonna leave because they don't wanna be associated with that. I mean, you can't make everyone happy here. And what are you gonna choose? I personally don't think that right and wrong is a very difficult thing to see the difference in, you know? I can see that hating people is wrong, making art is right. That's what I'm about. And so I hope that Patreon is aligned with that. If it wasn't, then I don't think I'd be using Patreon as a website. So just know that I'm all for freedom of speech. I don't want to be censored, but at the same time, I don't want to coexist on the same platform with people who are going to want to hate or harm people that are different than them. That just doesn't align with my values. And I can't speak for everybody, but I tend to feel that the vast majority of Patreon creators are artists and creatives who just want to have a platform that they can use to make a living doing what they love. And they'd probably really like it if outside interests would stop manipulating their platform. At the end of the day, this whole thing is taking money out of my pocket. I'm not posting political content. I'm just an artist. I'm not posting things to offend people or stir up controversy. I'm not trying to turn people against each other. I'm trying to bring people together. And it's artists like myself who are going to feel the impact of this. Fly-by-night internet personalities, Joe Blow, who has an opinion about migrant caravans or whatever, they're going to go back to being nobody like that. And it's not going to make a difference. But you start taking artists and musicians and story writers out of the picture, people who are just doing their thing. They're the ones that are creating the good, positive things that still exist in the world right now. You're going to take them out, and you're going to do it because you're catering to the people who want to hate on other people. That just doesn't make any sense. Where do you draw the line on censorship? I don't know, but I think, in my opinion, it's subjects that make your audience uncomfortable. It's subjects that make your audience feel unsafe. It's subjects that are highly offensive. Supporting freedom of speech is not catering to a minority of people who want to ruin the community. And most people are following the rules and are being respectful of each other. And those are the people who deserve the most attention from Patreon. So if you want to be mad at somebody, don't be mad at Patreon, don't be mad at Jack Conte, be mad at all of these different organizations, whichever side of the political spectrum they're on, be mad at those people, because those people are not Patreon, they're not artists, they're not making art, they're stirring up controversy, they're getting views and they're getting people all fired up just to get more likes and more subscribes and make more money for a very short period of time. But what are they going to contribute in the long run? Are people still going to care about them 10 years from now or 50 years from now? Is their work going to be looked back on, and is it going to have an impact on the world in a positive way? Probably not. It's stuff that's going to, you don't even remember people who existed 10 years ago. You know, you're like, oh, there's that guy. Oh yeah, I remember. He was somebody who was famous for like a year and then poof, he disappeared, you know? But the point here is those people are ruining Patreon. Those people are the problem. If everybody just follows the rules and works together, then we don't have these kind of problems and we can just use the internet in peace. That's all I want. So there you go. That's my take on the controversy surrounding Patreon deleting people's accounts. I'd like to know what you think about the whole subject. Comment down below and let me know. If you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe and click the like button if you enjoyed this rant. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.